Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors suffered their 8th defeat in 10 games, this time at the hands of the Dallas Mavericks. 143-133, really an all-star game type of performance from both teams with the offense completely dominating. Quite a frustrating game to watch from a Warrior perspective. I know, for neutral fans, or particularly obviously Dallas fans watching that game, it was probably a nice game to watch given how good the offense was from both teams. But it felt to me like the Warriors continually made these little runs, these little fight backs to get within 5 or 6 points. And at no point did I ever feel confident that, hey, the Warriors are actually going to win this game. At no point did I ever think they're going to consistently be able to get the stops to be able to overcome the Mavericks, who put up 46 points in the first quarter, 81 points in the first half. Just had it rolling. Warriors created a little bit of unwanted NBA history by the fact they put up and also made 27 three-pointers of the 54 they put up, which is a record amount of threes for a team to actually lose a game. So, yeah, I mean, it's just disappointing. It's disappointing. It's frustrating that the offense, after so many struggles over the last 9 games, actually came along. Like, the Warriors have been 28th in defensive rating over the last, 28th in offensive rating over the last 9 games. And hey, look, they put up 133 points today. Great. But for then the 4th ranked defense to not show up and concede 143 points, it's obviously difficult to kind of analyze how much you can put against the Warriors and be critical of their defense, as opposed to just saying, oh, the Mavericks were on fire and just came out of the game scorching hot, made like their first 9 or 10 shots and just didn't really cool off at any point throughout the game. So it's hard to find a balance between analyzing, and being critical of the Warrior defense while also just saying, hey, the Mavericks were at a completely different level offensively. Plenty to talk about from this game, though. I'll have it led by you guys in the comments. So let's get into a few here. B Master says, well, Kerr honestly blew that in the first few minutes with that ridiculously stupid starting lineup. Of course, it would have zero defense. So I'm just going to wipe my brow here. It is very hot here today in Hobart, Tasmania, and I am legitimately sweating. It's why I'm wearing a tank top here. Yes, let's talk about the starting lineup. So Steve goes back to Draymond off the bench, which he'd obviously forecast a little bit last week, and then Draymond ended up starting 2 games in a row at center. He's off the bench in this one, goes back to Looney at starting center. So it ends up being Steph with Buddy Hield, with Wiggins, with Kuminga, with Looney. And as I said before, the Mavericks just came out and made like 9-10 shots in a row to start the game without missing. So again, it's not a Kuminga issue. So I think a lot of people are going to point at that decision and say, like, how can Kuminga be in the starting lineup over Draymond? And yes, that's what it comes down to, because ultimately, clearly, Steve doesn't think he can play the two together in the starting lineup. And I understand that. Like, I agree with that. I don't think Draymond at center is sustainable. But clearly, I don't think it's a Kuminga issue as such. Like, I don't think the Mavericks came out and made 9 or 10 shots because of Jonathan Kuminga's poor defense. So to individualize it, to bring it down to just a Draymond versus JK situation, I don't think is right. But in saying that, clearly Draymond Green is a much better defender than Jonathan Kuminga. I thought Kuminga I did think he had a poor showing on defense in this game. It's not the reason why the Mavericks put up 143 points. I think a lot of Warriors were poor defensively. He was one of them. So it's fascinating to see what they do moving forward here, because offensively, Kuminga was fine. The Warriors were good. The Warriors scored 133 points offensively. JK had another 20 points. What's this? Like 4 out of 5 games with 20 plus points, I think. And he was much more efficient in this game. So he was fine offensively. It's just obviously defensively, he and the Warriors as a whole just couldn't get any stops. What they do with the starting lineup moving forward, who knows? Because I think it's pretty clear that Draymond has to start, but like so does JK. So the Warriors are in such a difficult spot here where I just don't know where they go to outside of saying, let's go trade for a stretch 5. Let's try again with like Wiggins at the 2, Kuminga at the 3, Draymond at the 4, and a stretch 5. And then you can have Schroder in your ideal 6-man role as well. So That's still my ideal outcome, I think, is that they trade for, hey, Nikola Vucevic, and they go back to trying Kuminga at the three. I don't know. It's just so difficult. GSW says, can't blame Mavs hitting however many shots in a row and starting lineup defense. It was just one of those nights where everything went in. Yeah, there's going to be people very critical of lineup decisions and of Kuminga starting over Draymond and the Warrior defense. There's certainly a part of it, though, that is just the Mavericks just hit every shot. And there's not much that you could have done about that to some degree. Anyway, it's hard. It's hard to find a balance. I haven't actually heard what Steve said about it yet. I'm going to be interested to see what he says in terms of how much blame he puts on his own guys as opposed to just giving plaudits to the Mavericks and saying, hey, you guys were just absolutely unbelievable offensively. And that's what, when Klay Thompson joined the Dallas Mavericks and joined Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, that was the blueprint that, hey, now you've got you've got arguably the best, one of the best offensive players, probably maybe second behind Jokic in terms of pure offensive skill and shot making, and combine that with his passing ability. Luka is amazing. You've got Kyrie, who's one of the most skilled, talented guards in the league, and you've got Klay playing off those guys, who's one of the best catch and shoot guys in the history of the NBA. This was the blueprint of, hey, this could be one of the best offenses in the league, and you saw that in this game tonight. Beamer says, no, they hit those shots entirely because the starting lineup had no defensive ability. Okay, that's your opinion. I don't think it's entirely because of that. I disagree with that, but it's up to you. Looney, Kuminga, Hill, and Steph all at once was guaranteed wide open threes and dunks. They got wide open threes and dunks throughout the whole game. Like even when Draymond was on the floor, and I think it's more an issue with the Warriors schematically and coming up against the Mavericks. It's hard to really pick and choose what you're going to do, because you either live on an island with Luka and he just torches basically every defender that he faces, and you're pretty much praying and hoping that he misses more so than actually impacting what he does necessarily. So do you do that, or do you throw bodies at him? And again, he's such a good passer that, and credit to the Mavericks, it wasn't just playing off Luka, but it was the extra passes they were making, the swing all the way around the perimeter till they got the wide open looks. Klay went 7 of 11 from three, and were there any contested ones? Were there legit any contested Klay Thompson threes? I'd love to see the stats on it. He just seemed to be open on every three he took. He missed a couple in a row there. I think it was in the second quarter where he missed a corner three. Luka tipped it back out to him. He was open again, missed another. Luka got the rebound again and then got fouled on a putback attempt, which is an incredibly frustrating play. The fact they got 3 opportunities and Klay actually missed a couple, which were 2 of his 4 misses out of 11 for the night. So that's the thing. Like, they moved the ball so well. And I think it was more a schematic thing from the Warriors rather than individual personnel. And yes, like, the individual personnel is a worry and it does dictate some of the schematic stuff they have to do. But my goodness, like, just the open looks that the Mavericks were getting all night, even at times when Draymond was on the floor, I think. So, yeah, I don't think it's entirely up to the starting lineup necessarily. Did you not see some of those contests, though? Were there many contests? I don't think so. No pressure at all, and we lost in the first half of the first quarter entirely due to that. In the first quarter with the starting lineup, there were no effective contests. Dallas was completely comfortable, but otherwise I love the game. Nice fight for 3.5 quarters. B-Master says all that and then says, Kuminga can start. You just need players around him who defend, like Kyle, Lindy, Pods are all better defenders than Hield, and Trace is more mobile than Looney if you're going to keep switching. So this is a point that I know a colleague of mine at Blue Man Hoop is going to write about, I believe, and that is that you bring Dennis Schroder into the mix, and yes, that is an upgrade offensively, and he's largely coming in because of his offense, but he's also a better defender than Buddy Hield. So you put him into that slot, and I fully believe that the Warriors intend to start Dennis Schroder and Steph Curry together in the backcourt come his debut against the Grizzlies on Thursday, which is likely to be the case, unless maybe he has his first couple of games off the bench to try and get him acclimatized a little bit. But I think you've lost 8 of your last 10 games. You might as well go for it and do what you envisage, which I think is starting Schroder and Steph in the backcourt. And that is a defensive upgrade. Dennis Schroder is not as big as Buddy Hield, but his navigation on screens is much better. Just a much higher IQ player defensively, long wingspan, 6'7", just fights a lot harder, knows what to do, where to be. So that is an upgrade defensively. And so, I don't know, let me know, B Master, do you think like putting Schroder in that spot instead of Hield, are you going to think that a Steph, Schroder, Wiggins, Kuminga, Looney starting lineup is more viable? Let me know. Daniel Hall says we missed Melton in this game. Yeah, well, I mean, we've missed him ever since he went out. Like, it's really disappointing. I didn't speak about Melts too much on my podcast yesterday, reacting to the Schroder trade news, but I do want to mention, like, I hope that guy comes back. I would like to know what he thinks. Like, I think he would know that this is NBA business, and this is how it was going to be after his season-ending ACL injury. But I'd like to know how his relationship is with the franchise and with the front office, and whether or not, hopefully, there's an opportunity for him to come back as a free agent, because that is legal. The Warriors can re-sign him as a free agent, and even though he's probably going to miss the start of next season potentially, who knows? Yes, there's going to be injury risk associated with that, but if you're bringing him back on, $5-6 million or less, maybe even the vet minimum, then that's going to be worth it, because we saw how valuable he was to the Warriors and how much they've been missing him since. B Master says there was only one quarter where they scored 46 and where we lost by 13. It was because that was the only quarter with that lineup. Well, they did start the third quarter with the same starting lineup. So that's not true. B-Mus says, yeah, Mavs weren't working hard on defense, and also Luka is easy to exploit. Dan Decker says Mavs couldn't miss at all. We need a center who can get rebounds and defend. The rebounding was actually frustrating for me, because let me just see the final numbers. It felt like the Mavericks clearly just didn't miss for most of the night. And then when they did, like, too many offensive rebounds. So they only had 10. It felt like they had some crucial ones. Like, what about that one from Gafford? I think it was him in the fourth quarter where the Warriors got it down to 5 or 7 or something. And then Gafford got a put-back layup, which was just super frustrating at that point in time. I mean, the Warriors end up with 15 offensive rebounds. A lot of those felt like tips and stuff like that, more so than actually huge. It just felt like the Mavericks had more impactful offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities than the Warriors had. BMR says, absolutely, really excited for Schroder. He's a way better defender than Hield, in response to me asking about whether that starting lineup could be viable, I suppose, with Steph and Schroder and Wiggins, Kuminga, Looney. Matt says, Buddy's streaky shooting. Yeah, he is. You just don't want him as a starter. Like, you don't. I was wondering, and this is why Schroder is just a guaranteed starter for mine, because, like, who else? Like, I just don't think Buddy's a starter. I don't think Buddy's a starter on a very good playoff team. And if the Warriors want to envisage being that, I just don't think Buddy Hield is that. Pods, you're just not going back to in the form that he's in at the moment. Waters played better today in terms of shooting the ball, but, like, I don't think he's going to be your starting two guard on a good playoff team either. So it's got to be Schroder. It has to be. FTW Clan says, give me Vooch or Miles Turner, please. Yep, that'd be the move I'm envisaging. I'd actually, you know what? So let me just talk about that for a second. So I think it's tomorrow. So Monday the 16th, which it already is here today as I'm speaking, but in America, Monday the 16th is the cutoff date, which says that if you go and acquire someone by that date, you can move them again by the trade deadline. Why don't the Warriors just go and make another move in the next 24 hours for, like, Vucevic? And then you still are eligible to trade him as well as Schroder before the February 6th trade deadline. Why don't you go and do that? Now, most people, and I can imagine, people would say, well, that's just having too much change. Why would you bring 2 guys in, send 3 or 4 guys out, and then just trade one or both of those guys again in less than 2 months? And the Warriors clearly have prioritized keeping guys together and continuity over the past 10 years. It's why Steph, Klay, and Draymond, they all played together for 12 plus years. Now Klay's left, obviously, and the Warriors are very hesitant usually to make in-season trades. This one with Schroder is a rare one, and so, it'd be weird and unlikely for them to make another deal so quickly. But I just think they went out, they saw a clear issue with their backcourt situation and with getting another point guard in, and they went out and quickly moved for Schroder. I just think they have a serious issue with their center position right now. Why don't they go and try and address that right now? And again, if you're using your salaries to get to Vucevic's $20 million, then yes, okay, that would eliminate the possibility of going and getting a star before the February 6th deadline. However, if you went and got Vucevic in the next 24 hours, then that would eliminate that as well because you could move him. I don't know. It's all quite complicated, but that's just such a significant issue at that center position for me right now. B Master says, Buddy is consistent. If we get him good looks, he hits at a high rate. If we get him poor looks, he misses. Yeah, well, that's very true. I mean, that's true for most players. Buddy is a great shooter, and he's going to continue. He's going to continue to play a lot because Schroder isn't the spot up 3-point shooter that Buddy is. And I actually hope that like second unit stuff, Schroder and Buddy Hield next to each other, maybe that actually works a little bit. I'm kind of excited to see. I think TJD could have more of an impact in a second unit if Schroeder's in it, because I think Schroeder's instantly going to come in and be the best lob passer on the team. So I don't know. Thendecker says, we actually shot well, but Dallas were not missing at all. Yeah, I mean, we made the most threes in NBA history of teams to lose. Teams that made 27 threes or more in NBA history were 11-0 before this game. B-Mush says, fair enough. I stand corrected if they started the third quarter with the same lineup. Yeah, they did, and then they moved Kuminga out about 5 minutes in. GSW says, Pods fall off being crazy. That play in the fourth quarter, we have to bring it up, don't we? We have to bring up that play in the fourth quarter where he seemed to have a wide open three. Then he pump faked it. Luka went by him. Then he kind of pump faked it again. And he just got stuck in the corner doing nothing. And Luka ended up getting back in front of him. And then I'm not even sure what Pods did. And I have to laugh because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. It was maybe the most ugly play I've seen for the entire season. I have no idea what he was doing. A lot of people on social media also rightly pointing out that what were his teammates doing? Why could he not find a teammate in that scenario? And it was hard on the broadcast with obviously the angle of the camera to see where all the other Warriors players were. Maybe it was a situation where they just expected him to take that open corner three and therefore they were running down the other end of the court. I don't know what the case was, but geez, that was an ugly play, probably, the ugliest for the season, I think. Just looking at Pods' numbers here, he made 1 3, went 1 of 5, 1 rebound, 2 assists, played 15 minutes. Geez, he played less than 16 minutes. If you're playing less than 16 minutes and Dennis Schroder is about to be added to the mix, Pods could be getting 8 to 12 minutes a game max, I think, here from moving forward. Thendek says, defense wins your championships. We need our 2021-22 defense. I mean, it's one game. We still entered this game 4th in defense. So I think I'm not going to overreact and say this is a bad defensive team. I think we're still an elite defensive team, to be honest. B-Mus says, feel bad for Pods. He still does great things in the game, just really in his head about shooting. Yeah, I think that was a mental thing. And we can't underestimate how hard this is for everyone involved. Because you've got a situation where this guy was heavily in trade rumors during the offseason, and clearly the Warriors pumped him up to a degree by saying that, hey, this guy's going to be a future all-star. We think we've got that on our hands. Pod said, hey, I want to be in the most improved player conversation. I want to be known as one of the young stars in the league. And so the pressure that's on him at the moment within himself to become that player is obviously significant. But then there'd certainly be guys on the team. Like, you can't tell me that Steph Curry right now is looking at Brandin Podziemski and not thinking, hey, we could have moved this guy for Larry Markkinen. Like surely this guy is going to produce more. And so the pressure, I feel like Pods feels the pressure, not just within himself because of all the things he said, but also because of how the franchise has treated him, how other teammates would be looking at him as, hey, this is a young guy we expected to take a leap here, that we kept out of trade conversations for genuine star players. It just becomes a lot. It literally becomes a lot. And he's a 21-year-old in his second year. That's why I still won't, I think some of the stuff on social media is way out of line and way over the top and just flat out disrespectful. And I give him a little bit of leeway just based on how young he is and how much pressure is on him. And I still think there's a pathway here for him to maneuver out of that and still become a really good NBA player. But clearly the Warriors are still trying to balance that while being a team that wants to contend with Steph Curry. So it's super difficult. Beamer says, glad the pressure will be off him with Schroder. Yeah, I said yesterday it might actually help him, but how much can he impact a game if he's only playing 12, 15 minutes? I don't know. Like, you're going to have Steph, Schroder, Hield, Payton. I think Payton might get moved. So I still think there's minutes there for Pods. Like, you've got to play kind of four guards. And so I think he's still ahead of, I think Payton probably should get moved. And I still think he's ahead of Lindy Waters. So I don't know. Thandeka says we need to attack the paint more and get some free throws. That's what Schroder will bring. Schroder, like, how many guys can actually beat their guy off the dribble and get to the rim? Not many. Schroder will bring that. It's why the Warriors clearly targeted him. He's also a very good free throw shooter, which would help for a team that's I'm still pretty sure is worst in the league at the moment. Thandeka says, can Vucevic defend though, but he gets 8+ rebounds? Yeah, he's not a good defender. Like, he's not a good defender. But you know what? Like, I just think it would bring something different, and you've still got you've still got Looney and TJD on the roster who you can go to in those moments where you need defensive stops. So it's not ideal. Like, it's not the perfect fit, because if it was the perfect fit, the Warriors would have made it already based on how available he is right now from the Chicago Bulls. I think Miles Turner would probably be a better option because he's that more of a, yes, he's a stretch big, but he can also protect the paint. Clearly, Indiana don't really want to move him. They've just made a move to try and get another backup center in the form of Thomas Bryant. So GSW says, Pod shot and Luka blocked him. Horrible watch. What was the offer for Larry Market again? Starting to hurt that it didn't go. Pods was untouchable. I'm not sure what the offer was in the end. I know Moody was in it. Probably would have been Payton, Moody, and another rotation player for, and obviously all the picks for Markin, and maybe that was the offer, and obviously Utah wanted Pods. Rajin says, Pods continues to stop his dribble, overcommits on defense, and never sees man and ball, basic fundamentals. Yeah, he's just not doing, like, Steve had a crack at him in a post-game press conference a few games ago about him just not doing the simple things well. At the moment, it's true. GSW says Pods said he wanted to be a triple-double guy, so he put the expectation on himself. It's true, unfortunately. Pods was a solid defender this game and some heroic saves that got us extra possessions. That was from B-Master. GSW says Pods dive for ball. Lindy turnaround 3 was tough. Yep. That was like, what did Waters? Waters shot 4 of 7 from 3 this game, so shot the ball well for the first time in a while. Went 12 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 steals. So pretty good game. Lindy was a plus 13. Wow. Lindy Waters was a plus 13. That's incredible. Anyway, FTW Clan says, I'm definitely taking Lindy over Pods right now. Well, looking at those stats, yes, maybe you are. People should understand that this is from Thandeka. People should understand that it's Pod's second season. The fact that we didn't trade him for Larry, but now he's having a bad spell, which makes it worse. I've wrote about it. I don't think I've spoken about it too much, but I think if you're the Warriors right now, you've just got to kind of double down and not admit your mistake. Like, if you trade Pods right now, you admitted that you're basically admitting that you should have traded him in the offseason. I think that would be a mistake right now because his value's probably plummeted a lot as well in terms of what you get in a trade for him. I don't think he could be the centerpiece of a trade for a star now. So you kind of just got to write it out and say, okay, maybe we did make a mistake, but we're not going to admit the mistake by trading him. We're going to hope that he continues to develop, hope that this is a cold streak. And if you think he's going to be or can be an all-star level player for you in the future, you probably don't change that based on 25 games at the start of his second season. So you just got to ride it, I think. FTW Clan says, and GP2 couldn't even throw the ball in the ocean right now, so get him out of here. Yeah, this three-point shooting is just a genuine disaster. He can't play. Like, he cannot play. I'm sorry, he can't. He had a really good game a few games. Like, that game, Wiggins was out and his defense really showed up on Ant late in the game. Fine, put him out there for some defensive possessions. But other than that, I'm not sure why he's playing. He played 11-29, where it goes 2 of 5. I think a couple of those were tip-ins. Misses his 2 threes. What is he from three-point range? Is he at like God, let me look it up. It's got to be. I don't think this is going to count today's game, but I think is he at 16.7% or something? I think he's at 16.7%. He is at 13.8%. 13.8% for me. I'm not sure how you can be. I don't care how good of a defender you are. I legit do not care. If you are 6'2" and shooting 13.8% from three, get out of the rotation. Like, legit, get out of the rotation. Please. Put him out. If there's defensive possessions at like end of quarters, end of games where you need to stop, absolutely, by all means, put him in the game. But you are literally playing 4-on-5 on offense when he's out there, because teams just do not guard him. His only source of offense right now is putbacks from offensive rebounds, like flying in and tipping the ball in. That's not good. Get him out of the rotation. B-Master says Lauri Markkanen was never going to be traded for Pods. Pods was just a small part of a deal that likely included serious draft picks. Yeah, that's true, but the Warriors were willing to put the draft picks in and they weren't willing to put Pods in. Rajan says we didn't win 4 chips because a guy did nothing but make a hustle play here and there. He's not cool to the end. I don't know. The conversation around Pods is it's tough at the moment, to be honest. GP2 shooting 15% from three is hurting. That's from GSW. Yeah, he's 13.8% now. Feel like the best move for the Warriors to make next is for Vucevic. The way he would space the floor for Kuminga would be insane. He would also allow us to play bigger, putting Dre at PF. Exactly what I said earlier. GSW says, I don't want him shooting if he's open anymore. Yeah, why? He's actually averaging 1.2 a game, which for a guy that averages, what is he averaging, like 15 minutes a game? He's averaging 13.4 minutes. So 1.2 threes in 13.4 minutes for Gary Payton is actually kind of high when you consider, like, what was he doing he was 1.7 in 17.6 minutes in 2021-22. And he shot 35.8%. Like, this guy shot 35.8% from three in the championship year. He goes to Portland. He shoots 52.9% in 15 games, limited sample size. Comes back to the Warriors, shoots 44.4%. Last season, he was at 36.4% from three on 1.3 attempts in 15 and a half minutes. What has happened? It's not like he's getting contested by opposing defenses. He's still as wide open as he's ever been. He's more wide open. And he's gone from a guy that can actually hit the occasional one, like mid 30%, to 13.8. I'm sorry. It's tough. It's a tough watch. I love Gary, and I feel bad for him. Like, I feel bad that his shooting's just lost completely, and I want him to be able to rediscover that. But I don't know. Can you actually play through it anymore? Like, 25 games is, I know I was just saying about Pods, like, if you're the Warriors and you think you've got a star on your hands, you don't want to change that based on 25 games. But that's for a young player who's in his second year, who is going to have peaks and troughs and ups and downs. Gary Payton II is 32 years old. Okay, I'm not sure how much more you can live through 13.8% shooting from three-point range. All right, let's talk about him being out of the rotation. Let's move. I'm surprised no one's brought this up yet because I tweeted about it early in the game. Kyle Anderson, DNP. For what reason? Not sure. I don't get it. I know he can't really shoot either, but at least he gives you some size. At least he can handle the ball a little bit. Does just a little bit more stuff than Gary Payton II. You don't have that much size anyway. So if you've got a 6'9" guy on the roster who's been around for 10, 11 years, who legitimately averaged 22 minutes a game on a Western Conference Finals team last season, you probably could use that guy. I don't get it. He has to be traded. He has to be traded at some point if this is what Steve's going to do. Because there's no point him being around. I don't know. Why is Kyle Anderson not playing? Please someone give me an explanation. Clearly he thinks that, like, Kuminga is obviously getting some of those minutes. He's playing a lot more. When you've got Kuminga, you've got Draymond, you've got Looney, TJD. Maybe there's just obviously no room for for Kyle Anderson. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. Just you got to move him then. If he's not in the rotation, you're paying him $9 million and he's on a contract for another 2 years. I'm sure another team would look at him and say, yeah, we could use him. The Timberwolves could probably talk themselves into getting him back. I don't think it would happen because of their second apron implications and stuff like that. But my goodness, like you got to either use him in a trade or actually start playing him legit. And this is not just a random one. He played 12 total minutes over the last 2 games. I think he played less than 4 minutes in the previous game. So do something. Rajan says, front office, please go get a Vucevic to have a big man you can throw the ball into the post would relieve so much pressure off Steph. Yes. If you're not going to go for Jimmy Butler, if you think LeBron is an absolute pipe dream, which it probably is, then your best option has to be Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, Vucevic, Schroder as a 6-man, and that's just a good 6. I think that's a good 6, and then you've got whatever else after that. So, obviously, I was talking about the Melton GP2 for Vucevic trade, like Melton GP2 and a pick or so for Vucevic. Now Melton's out of the mix, so what can it be? Well, it's got to be Anderson. So, Anderson GP2. Let's get on the trade machine. I'm getting on the trade machine. Bugger it. We've been going for over 31 minutes. I'll finish this up soon. I'm getting on the trade machine. MVX Hunter says if we're keeping Vucevic, if we're keeping Kuminga, Vucevic is the most logical answer. Yeah, because I just want to see Kuminga with an actual stretch 5 next to him who isn't going to clog the paint. Warriors and Bulls. Let's concoct a trade here. Chicago, 11-15. So they're in a similar situation to Brooklyn where it's probably going to be better for them if they try and make a deal sooner rather than later so they stop actually being semi-competitive. That's exactly why the Warriors got a steal with Schroder. The issue is the Warriors just don't have second-round picks anymore. They actually, that's a lie. They still... what did they... So they gave up both the Atlanta ones, and was it a 2029 second or something? So they've got a 2030 second. Okay, so that's the issue is you actually don't have any second round picks. So it's kind of got to be a first round pick for Vucevic. And then that's becomes a bit of an issue. Just having a look here. The issue is Chicago don't have cap space because if they had cap space and could absorb Moody, then I'd be like, okay, can we do GP2 Anderson and Moody for Vucevic and Torrey Craig? That'd be my best bet, but I don't think you can do that. Because, I don't think Chicago have cap room. Maybe is there a third team that can take on Moody? Doubt it. Just trying to work this out here. GP2 and Anderson, so that gets you to 17.9 million. Vucevic is at 20. You know what? If you said here's Pods, Chicago would do it in a second. If you said here's Brandin Podziemski, and I reckon a lot of Warrior fans would actually agree that. I wouldn't personally. I'd stick with Pods, but you could do it. The issue is bringing a third guy into the mix is that you need enough. I think ideally you bring back it's a 3-for-2 trade or something, and you bring back Torrey Craig, who's only making 2.8. Because otherwise, if you do a 3-for-1 trade, the Warriors are too close to the first apron where it's difficult to then be able to go and sign guys to fill out the rest of the roster. I don't know what it is. I think it's can you orchestrate something where it's Moody going to... I know Detroit have cap room at the moment. Let's get Detroit involved. Maybe I'll do another podcast episode on this. Add a third team. Pistons. Just a few more of your comments here. GSW, I feel like doing Anderson and GP2 for Vucevic would make us contenders, but then again, defensive problems. Yeah, it's got to be something else too in terms of another player because they don't quite reach the Vucevic salary. Chucking Guy Santos, you can, yes, but again, that leaves the Warriors with 2 roster spots. NVX Hunter says, what's your reasoning for wanting to keep Pods when we have Schroder? I kind of just spoke about it before. I just think if you think you had a star on your hands during the offseason, I just wouldn't change that based on 25 games, or I wouldn't change it to the point where I'm just trading him for not much in return. And Vucevic is good and could help this team, so maybe you do it for Vucevic, but I just don't that'd be a drastic turnaround if you said, hey, we think we have an all-star in our hands, and then a few months later you're saying, oh yeah, we're just trading this guy for a role player. That'd be a drastic change, particularly when you could have acquired him you could have moved him for a Larry Markkinen in the offseason, like Pods and a bunch of picks and the salary to get to Markkinen. It's almost like sunk cost at the moment. You just got to ride it out, I think, with him. NVX Hunter says the length we would have and putting Wiggins at the 2 instead of the 3 and Dre at the 4 instead of the 5 would help the D, if anything. Possibly. And I'm not even advocating that you'd finish games with Vucevic. I'm actually saying you'd probably still finish games with Steph and Schroder and Wiggins, Kuminga, Green. But maybe, to the Warriors think we don't really want to be paying $20 million to a guy that isn't in our closing lineup. Maybe that's the case. What can you do here? The issue with Fanspo haven't really updated Moody's contract situation here, so it actually makes it difficult. But the Pistons have $14.9 million cap space. Can we just? Do they have? I'm trying to work this out. Trying to work something out. Can we just offload Moody to the Pistons and get back Marcus Sasser? No, probably not. So if Craig goes to the Warriors here with Vucevic, and let's say the Pistons give up. Let's say the Pistons give up a 2027. Let's say the Pistons give up two 2027 second round pick and a 2029 second round pick to Chicago. 3-team trade. What are we at? Failed. Only reasons it's failed is because Moses Moody cannot be traded this year since he signed an extension after training camp. That is not true. That is false. I think I might have fixed it. I think I may have come up with the Vucevic trade. It's Chicago actually taking, so it's Vucevic and Craig to the Warriors, Payton, Anderson, and 2 seconds to the Bulls, and Moody to the Pistons. So the Warriors are essentially giving up Payton, Anderson, and Moody for Vucevic and Craig. The Bulls are getting Payton, Anderson, and 2 seconds for Vucevic and Craig, which, okay, they'd have to be heavily incented. It'd have to be like a Brooklyn situation where they just want to get off him so bad. I'm not sure they've got to that stage. Stein reported the other day they want a first. So maybe the Warriors have to throw in a pick. And then the Pistons are getting Moody for 2 seconds. I think the Pistons are doing that, aren't they? Would they not? I mean, I suppose it probably limits them a little bit in their cap room moving forward. So that's maybe why they wouldn't do it. But I don't know. Then Decker says, I thought you were going to say Moody for Wiseman. Yeah, that ain't happening. JSW, Steph, Wiggs, JK, Draymond, and Vucevic. Schroeder 6-man would be a solid lineup. Yep, that's kind of what if we think an all-star level trade, a guy making $40+ million is going to be too much to figure out, then this is what I'm advocating for. And you know what? If it doesn't work, then you wait to you get to the off season and maybe that star player does become available and you should still have the flexibility. You're still going to have all your young players and stuff like that to actually make a move for still be in the running for a star player if you need to be. NVX Hunter, agree, JSW. If Kuminga take more of a leap with Vucevic, I'm sure Warriors would be title contenders. I'm not even sure it would work. I'm not saying that if you got a stretch big that Kuminga would just take off all of a sudden, but I just think it's worth trying. He's in his 4th year and you've never had a stretch big for him. Just try it. You've lost 8 of your last 10 games. I know you don't want to be making sweeping changes just because of one bad stretch, but these are issues that have plagued the Warriors for a lot longer than these last 10 games. GSW Wiseman was meant to be the center. How good would it be to have an athletic James Wiseman hitting threes, handling the ball, just blocking shots at the rim? Just the idea of James Wiseman was so good. It's actually so disappointing. Rahin says, mate, if the Warriors pull off that trade, Mike gets executive of the year in the league. We'll send the Bulls hit Coles for Christmas, lol, but I'm all for it. Yeah, I think they'd want a first. So the question then becomes, is Payton, Anderson, Moody in a first for Vucevic too much? I think it might be at that point. Yeah, for Vucevic and Craig. I don't know. Is 3 seconds worth enough? Do the Warriors throw in the remaining? I think they have one more second round pick. Can they throw that to the Bulls and say, okay, here's 3 second round picks for Vucevic and Torrey Craig, essentially, along with Anderson and GP2 as the salary? You could actually try and talk them into saying, hey, if you actually give Slow-Mo some game time here, almost rehabilitate his value, you could actually he's on a good contract if he actually is at a team that plays him. So I don't think Kyle Anderson's just an expiring, he's not an expiring contract. He's got 3 years left, but maybe you could say to the Bulls, well, you could actually flip him for something else later down the line. I don't know. JSW says, if I'm the Warriors, I'd give up the first, go all in. Yeah, but is Vucevic the guy you want to go all in for? I'm advocating for him. I just think you don't. It's like the Schroder trade. Like the Schroder trade is so good because it doesn't impact your ability to go out and make a bigger trade if it comes along. And that's the issue is I'm not sure Vucevic is the guy if it's going to impact your ability to go and make a bigger trade at some other point, whether it's before the February 6th deadline, which I think if you traded for Vucevic, you're probably just saying, yeah, we're not going to get an all-star type player by the trade deadline. But you still want to have that flexibility in the offseason if the opportunity arises. And that's why if you have to give up a first-round pick in the process, I think that's probably why you'd be hesitant. GSW says you can still trade Vucevic. You could in the offseason. He could be salary and he'd be an expiring contract as of next season. So, again, I just don't. The downside to Vucevic isn't that much unless it's an opportunity cost thing where you have to give up a first-round pick, and all of a sudden that's a first-round pick you don't have to go and make a bigger trade. Sai says, hi, mate. Good to see you again. Tough loss, but I believe the Warriors are about to go on a run. Let's hope Dennis the Menace is the savior for the Warriors. I think he's going to help a lot. I really do think he'll help. Is he going to be franchise-altering? No, but I think he's going to help. I think he's going to help solve a lot of the issues, particularly in terms of playing next to Steph and having that just certain backcourt partner for Steph. Like Melton was going to be that guy, and since then it's been Waters, Podziemski, Gary Payton, Buddy Hield, obviously the last few games, like so many different guys, and we just don't know who is putting their hand up and going to take that spot. And now Schroeder's just going to come in, and you'd imagine things will go swimmingly enough that he will just be that guy. So I says Dennis is a solid ad. People are underestimating his impact and the deal we got for him. Dunleavy been cooking. Yeah, like he's 18.6 points, 6.6 assists per game on 38.7% 3-point shooting, and you got him for 2 second-round picks, essentially. And Reece Beekman. I just don't want to leave that out. Reece Beekman, I've been watching a bit of G League recently. I like him. I think he's a solid young player. I think he's got the tools to become an NBA player. I'm actually fascinated to see how his career plays out. Again, not ever going to be the stumbling block between getting this deal done or not, but it's not nothing. Not nothing. Not many people would know about Reece Beekman, but he's had a very impressive start to the G League season. Again, it's the G League. So anyway, I'm going to finish it up because we went really from starting talking about this game. The Warriors lost 143-133 to me trying to envisage a trade here for Nikola Vucevic and just trying to see what the Warriors can do and plug these holes and issues that they have at the moment. Just a few more comments here to finish off. Young West says 5th place to 12th place in the Western Conference is only a game or two apart. That's a bad thing and a good thing. It's like the Warriors are now sliding pretty quickly, but if they win a few in a row, then they can be back in a reasonable position. So I says the Stephless minutes and all the other players who are going to get unlocked by his pick and roll. I did like Steve's comments before the game talking about how it sounds like he's going to lean into Dennis as a pick and roll player, because I think that one of the biggest worries was, oh, well, Dennis just doesn't fit the Warriors system, free flowing ball movement, everybody eats kind of style. And it sounds instead like Steve will actually lean in and say, hey, we want to use these guys' strengths, use this guy's strengths as much as possible. FTW Clan says he was included in the trade for Dennis. Sai says, interesting days ahead. They are. So I'm going to finish it up there. The Warriors have got until Thursday now to prepare to get Dennis Schroder into the mix for his debut game against the Memphis Grizzlies on Thursday, Friday, my time, which is quite ironic given his last game for Brooklyn came against Memphis. So this will be 2 games in a row for Dennis Schroder against the Grizzlies, and he had that run-in with Taylor Jenkins and the Grizzlies as well, which was quite notable. So it's, quite an ironic aspect to that. Sai says, dub over Grizz, book it. Let's hope so, because the Warriors have lost 8 of their past 10, now 14-11 on the season after such a bright start. It's a little bit disappointing. I'll be back in the next couple of days for another episode, potentially looking at other trade possibilities, other Schroeder stuff, all that kind of stuff before Thursday's game. Raheen says, good night, mate, from New York. Go Dubs. And Young Wes says, cheers, mate. So I appreciate it, guys, for all of you that commented. For those of you watching this back afterwards or listening via the podcast feed, thank you very much as well. Until then, for those of you where it's still the weekend and it's still Sunday, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And for those of you that started the week, have a great week ahead.